Good day everyone. So we are the reporters of today's discussion and we will be discussing the language teaching and learning strategy for listening and viewing.
Okay, for today's lesson objectives, first, at the end of the lesson, the students are expected to acquire strategies for teaching listening and viewing, distinguish between bottom-up and top-down models of listening, categorize listening skills and activities as involving bottom-up or top-down approaches, design activities for selected listening skills, and design activities that target the development of viewing skills. So that's our learning objectives for today. For our instructional materials needed, so we have 3 instructional materials that we need. So first is your copy of the mother tongue curriculum guide. The second one is the PowerPoint, your PowerPoint presentation, and the third one is the writing materials. Okay. First is activate. So, what is activate? So, activate is the majority of the text that students nowadays are encountering and creating are multimodal. Multimodal text is, for example, like printed, or you're going to print the pictures, then you're going to show it in your class. Activate, the majority of text that students nowadays are encountering and creating are multimodal, one where the meaning is communicated by more than one mode. So, one mode, it means like written text, audio, still, pictures, moving pictures, gestures, use of space, and etc. This has huge impact for educational system. So, activate, from the word activate is kadalasan nga ginagamit sa mga teachers nga magtudlo sa mga estudyante is para mas masabta nila is mag-print sila mga picture, then ilang ginapakita sa ilang estudyante kasi mo na ang kasagaran nga na-encounter sa mga estudyante karon, very high-tech na kayo. Then, listening and viewing essential in comprehending and appreciating multimodal text. So, through listening and viewing, very necessary kayo na siya para mas masabtan o ma-appreciate ang mga multimodal text na imong i-display through listening and viewing. Viewing is defined by the Canadian Common Curriculum Framework as an active process of attending and comprehending visuals such as television, advertising, image, films, diagrams, symbols, photographs, videos, drama, drawings, sculptures, and painting. So, for the curriculum framework of for the viewing that defined by the Canadian Common Curriculum Framework is mas masabtan daw sa mga listener kung pamaagi kini sa visual media such as television, advertising, image, films, diagrams, symbols, photographs, videos, drama, drawings, sculptures, and paintings. So, ang pinapasagot sa multimodal text is, multimodal text is a combination of 2 or more modes, for example, print. So, kapag, for example, sa klase, kung gusto ipakita nga videos or pictures, or you're going to print it para mas masabtan sa mga estudyante kung unsa na siya, kung unsa mong gusto ipahiwatig o gusto ipakita. So, that's it. Viewing helps students develop the knowledge and skills to analyze and evaluate visual and multimodal text. So, through viewing, mas makatabang doon sa mga estudyante para ma-enhance or ma-develop ang ilang knowledge and skills to analyze evaluate visual and multimodal text. So, through viewing daw, mas masabtan or mapalawak sa mga estudyante ang ilang kaalaman kay syempre nakapakita kag picture mo tong mas masabtan nila kung unsa ang gusto ipahiwatig sa isa ka text. So that's it. Listening is one of the major skills in language acquisition. So from the word, language acquisition is process which means acquire the capacity to persuade and comprehend language. So, language acquisition, it means kanabitang para tuloy-tuloy ang imong pagstorya or mas masabtan imong pag-istorya through languages, any kind of languages, or to gain the ability to be aware of language and to understand it, to be aware the language and so that you can understand it. So, munang pasabot sa listening. Listening is one of the major skills in language acquisition. So, one of the language acquisition daw ang listening para mas masabtan na nato para maka-gain datang mga ability na para aware ta sa mga languages para mas masabtan nato. Learning to listen to the target language improves language ability. The sound, rhythm, intonation, and stress of the language can only be perfectly adapted through listening. So, we have here the 5 practical steps of Julian's to how you improve your listening skills. So, Julia Treasure she is a leading expert on sound and how to use it best. So, si Julia Treasure daw mo dali katong mo siya ang katong bitang expert sa mga sound on how you use it best para mas magamit nato ang mga sounds for ma-pronounce nato ang mga sounds na sakto. Si Julian's Treasure. So, nasa 5 steps to improve our listening skills. So, first, be silent. So, para mas ma-improve din nato atong listening skill, dapat hilom ta, dapat focus ta. The second one is here. So, kung diba first is silent, so the second one is here. So, maghilom ka, then maminaw ka para mas masabtan nato or mas maklaro nato ang unsay gidiscuss sa tubangan. So, number 3, savor. So, savor is find the joy. So, find the joy, they can be really interesting. So, ang savor is dapat kanang ikaw nga magtudlo, dapat mangita kag pamaagi para ang imong pagtudlo sa tubangan mahatagan og kanang bitang sabanay para sabanay attention sa mga estudyante para interesado sila maminaw sa imuha. Then the second one is adjust, which means adjust is a change your listening position, be conscious. So, dapat ikaw nga magtudlo, dapat sa imong mga kuan kanang sabanay sa imong gipang display at tubangan, dapat aware na ka kung unsay imong buhaton. Dapat aware na ka, for example, sa mga topic like culture, language, values, beliefs, and attitude, and so on and so forth. Dapat you as the teacher aware na ka sa imong mga gibuhat. Then, number 5. So, kapag naminaw ka, diba first is be silent. So, naminaw ka, through silent, naminaw ka, savor, and adjust. So, pag nabuhat na nimo tanan, kanang upat ka book, then, ikaw nga listener, maka-receive ka, then, ma-appreciate nimo kung saan gidiscuss sa tubangan, then, after that, ma-summarize nimo to tanan. After discussion, you as the student, you can summarize all the text o nga, unsa ang gidiscuss sa tubangan. So, nana kay mga idea, then, masabtan na to nimo. And, ikaw, kung wala may pangutana ang teacher, pwede ka mangutana as a student. So, for the last slide is why he said that individuals in the contemporary times lost their listening skills. So, ang tubag ni Julian's there is because there's just noise pollution now, and we've just got into the habit of suppressing our senses of hearing. So, big part of our life is to get people listening consciously. So, ang pinaka-important nito sa atong kinabuhi is kanang maminaw, maminaw ta, then aware ta sa unsa na nga topic nga gi-discuss karon. So, that's it. Julian's idea is that sound affects your life in a bunch of ways you never even think about. But the flip side of that idea is that becoming aware of sound and really listening, it can actually make our lives a little better. So, ang pagpaminaw sa discussion is very important daw kay tungod kay aware ta sa ilang gibuhat sa tubangan, then after the discussion maka-contribute tag mga ideas or maka-gain tag mga some knowledge, then ma-apply nato ni siya sa atuang or ma-apply nato ni siya or kanang sa.
So we are done with the activate part. Let's move on to analyze. Analyze the bottom-up and top-down model. An early view of listening saw it as the mastery of discrete skills or micro skills. When we say micro skills, these are basic counseling skills that assist rapport building and begin the therapeutic process. They include listening, nonverbal communication, silence, empathy, and response. As skills, on the other hand, focused on the development of such things, such as discriminating sounds in words, especially phonemic contrast, deducting the meaning of unfamiliar words, predicting content, noting contradictions, inadequate information, ambiguities. So there are two types of models in processing. These are bottom-up processing and top-down processing. Bottom-up processing helps students recognize lexical and pronunciation features to understand the text. When we say lexical, it is relating to the words or vocabulary of a language. Bottom-up processing can be defined as sensory analysis that begins at the entry level with what our senses can detect. This form of processing begins with sensory data and goes up to the brain's integration of the sensory information. Like, for example, if you see an image of an individual letter on your screen, your eyes transmit the information to your brain and your brain puts all of this information together. So next is the top-down processing. So when we say top-down processing, it relies on prior knowledge to build the meaning of a listening text using the information provided by the sounds and words. So it begins with the most general and moves toward the more specific. And these perceptions are heavily influenced by our expectations and prior knowledge. Our brain applies what it knows to fill in the blanks and anticipate what's next. For example, is the Stroop effect. So in this task, people are shown a list of words printed in different colors and then they are asked to name the ink color rather than the word itself. So let us all remember, when we say bottom-up processing, it begins with the retrieval of sensory information from our external environment to build perceptions based on the current input of sensory information, while top-down processing is the interpretation of incoming information based on prior knowledge, experiences, and expectations. So I have here a list of some skills for each approach: the bottom-up listening skills and the top-down listening skills. In bottom-up listening skills, we have 6 examples. So first is distinguish individual sounds, word boundaries, and stressed syllables. Identify thought groups. Listen for information patterns in utterance. Identify grammatical forms and functions. Recognize contractions and connected speech. And the last one is recognize linking words. In top-down listening skills, we have also 6 examples of some skills. So we have listening for gist, main ideas, topic and setting of the text, listening for specific information, sequencing the information, prediction, guessing, and the last one is inferencing. So those are the list of some skills for each approach. Understanding the viewing process is as important as understanding the listening and reading process. Effective and active viewers ask these questions. Number 1, what is the text representing? What is the purpose of the text? To whom the text directed? How is the text constructed? What assumptions, interests, beliefs, biases, and values are portrayed by the text? What is my reaction to the text? And the last one, what causes this reaction? They also engage in the following procedure. Number 1, previewing. Reviewing, students are prepared to view by activating their schema or their prior knowledge they bring to the study of a topic or theme, anticipating a message, predicting, speculating, asking questions, and setting a purpose for viewing. For example, is to hear parts of a speech before it is given at a meeting. To preview is to see or hear something before it is finalized. Number 2, during viewing. During viewing, students view the visual text to understanding, making connections, making and confirming predictions and inferences, interpreting and summarizing, pausing and reviewing, and analyzing and evaluating. The last one is after viewing or responding. Students respond personally, critically, and creatively text by reflecting, analyzing, evaluating, and creating.
And now let us proceed to Activity 1. Categorize the activities below as involving top-down or bottom-up processing. Before the item, write BU for bottom-up and TD for top-down approach. So number 1 item is listen to a 2-minute long conversation about getting around the city. So the answer is top-down because the information starts with general to specific. Second is listen to sentences giving and asking for directions, paying attention for the intonation, meaning, grammatical structure of each phrase. So the answer is bottom down because the information starts with simple to broad. Third is answer a completion test by selecting the appropriate verb to complete the thought of the sentence. So the answer obviously shows bottom up because the appropriate verb is completed through a sentences to be formed. Number 4 is asking and answering questions about the famous food in town. So this is a bottom down because the thought is general. Fifth is holding a class discussion about different modes of transportation to get the famous city museum. So this is a top-down processing. Sixth is listening to a first 20 seconds of the video recording to predict the topic of the material. This is top-down processing. And the last 4 items, which is check one's predictions after listening to the audio recording, summarizing a conversation, act out situations, writing a story based on a picture are all bottom up because as what I said earlier, the difference between top-down and bottom-up is top-down approach goes from the general to specific, and the bottom-up approach begins at the specific information to move in general. So next. So in Activity 2, Mendelssohn 1994 posits the methodologies in teaching of listening as characterized by the assumption listed below. So do you agree with this assumption? Interview language teachers about their current teaching practices and whether they've seen these theories applied in the classroom. So the first assumption is listening materials should be based on a wide range of authentic texts, including both monologues and dialogues. So my comment or my insight is the information should be valid because the student will have confusions if not. So kung magtudlo ta, dapat valid yun itong ginahimo kasi ang teaching is authentic yun na siya. So ang the feedback of other teachers is it will be easy for the student if the materials are relevant. So, same marami. Second assumption is the schema building task should precede listening. So my comment is it should be visualized because the student might forget what they heard. So, same na sa mga discussion sa mga student is sa pagtudlo sa mga student, dapat maghatag po tag mga instructional materials because it can also catch the student's attention and it will be easy for the student to know the topic. So the teacher's feedback is it is not really necessary. Third and the last is strategies for effective listening should be incorporated into the materials. So my insight is the student will enjoy listening when they catch your attention. So same as akong giingon lately. And the feedback of the teacher is it will be easy for them to learn. So next slide is learners should be given opportunities to progressively structure their listening by listening to a text several times and by working through increasingly challenging listening tasks. So, my insight is yes, the more they got mastered in listening, they would be used to learn through listening several times. And the feedback of the teacher is this method must be recommended for learners that can be fast learners through listening. So, next assumption is learners should know what they are listening for and why. My comment is, yes, they don't just listen but they must know the purpose. Yes, dapat kasi pangitaan dyan na to ang purpose para maganahan po ta or makabalo ta sa work or sa purpose nga nang himuon na to na siya nga activity. So the comment of the teacher is it will give them lots of knowledge if they know it's important. So last is tasks should be include opportunities for learners to play an active role in their own learning. So the students must have their own way of learning since we are all different in strategies. The teacher's feedback is we also apply learner-centered where the students are the one who do their own learning. So, tanan mapod no effective kung gustuhon jud nato nga maka-learn. Now, let us proceed to abstract. Examining teacher strategies for listening. Here are more research-based strategies for teaching listening in triads with credible print and non-print sources and examine the usefulness and effectiveness of the strategies. Complete the table below with your answer. So as what you see, these are the teaching strategy, guidelines, and the usefulness of effectiveness. So in Listen and Draw, to make listening more intentional and test students' spatial skills, have students follow and illustrate your instructions. Let them compare drawings with peers afterwards. So the use of this strategy is for the students to learn by sharing their thought in their peers and also applying instructions was for them to get on track. Second strategy is asking questions to help students listen. So the guidelines is posing questions before the listening task keeps students focused and directed. So the use of this is giving questions that are not familiar to students will be effective since they get more interested. Next is purposeful listening. Research has shown that when students know what they are listening, they are more focused. Systematically presenting listening from ideas, listening for details, listening to make inference, helps students develop a sense why they listen and which skills to use to listen better. So it will also improve their listening skills and how to apply that skills to perform better. So listening with peer interactions, encouraging interaction with classmates and native speakers through listening expands communicative context and enhances self-confidence. So it will be useful because they will practice their speaking tone. When should you speak low or louder, and also they will improve their taking turns behavior. So it also serves as sharing respect. So this strategy also shows values by giving respect on others. So this table shows the 3 frameworks for teaching viewing skills. They all require students to interact with the viewed materials, choose one modal text or one visual art to view and interpret. Analyze it using one strategies below. Write your interceptions in the box after the table. So the first column is the first column shows the 3 C's, which is the color, camera, character, and the 3 S, story, setting, sound, framework, or film and video. So this slide will show you an example of multimodal text or artwork. So the title of this artwork is Moana Movie, or it is a spoken text film. It also includes multimodal since viewing and listening are necessary. So the author of this movie is Ron Clements, John Masker, and Don Hall. So the strategy used is color, characters, stories, setting, and sound. Action and interpretation is the first steps in creating an animation. Strategy is to define the variables. So, who is the target audience? What's important to that audience? What is the goal of the project? What's the budget for the project? So, the art of process of making movies with drawings, computer graphics, or photographs of static objects include all techniques other than the continuous filming of live action image. So, still paintings, drawings, or puppet film to give illusions of movements or cartoons. So, this is a Walt Disney movie produced the first full-length features. So now let us proceed to apply. It is time for you to apply what you have learned about teaching, listening, and viewing in mother tongue. Your final task is to create an instructional activity that specifically targets one or more listening or viewing competencies from the mother tongue curriculum guide. Complete the template on the succeeding page. At the bottom of the template, you'll find process questions. Once you are done describing your activity, exchange your work with some seatmates and evaluate your seatmates' work using the process questions. So below is the criteria for giving. As what I said, ang paghimo ng activity is dapat authentic. So dapat nakibasihan nga criteria. So this is the example of instructional activity about listening and viewing. So activity title is the ending. The target grade level is grade 1 students and the time required is 1 hour and 15 minutes. So this type of student work is individual, pair, or even group work. So our learning objectives at the end of the activity, the students are expected to first, identify the possible ending of a story listened to. Second, determine the theme of the story. Describe the moral lesson of the story. Next. So, the activity description, the teacher will read the story through a PowerPoint presentation. So, a mother asked Clara to buy eggs from the store. She bought 3 pieces of eggs for 15 bill. Then the storekeeper gave her 10 pesos as her change. Laura stopped and looked at the 10 pesos on her hand. So after you read a story, the questions must follow. So these are the possible questions. What did mother ask Lara to do? How many eggs did she buy? How much do eggs cost in all? How much did Lara give the storekeeper? Did the storekeeper give Lara the change? How much change should the storekeeper give Lara? If you were Lara, what should you do after the storekeeper gave you the 10 peso? So, dapat ihatag dyan nimo ang mga possible questions kung naapay, kumbaga, imo pa dyan i-deep down ang imo mga curiosity kasi ang mga students kasi kay hilig jud na sila mo answer kung interesado sila. So after answering the questions, the criteria for grading will proceed. So this is the criteria for listening. So there is apparently focuses attention on the speaker, make an eye contact with the teacher or looks actively at the pictures in the story. Can answer
various questions such as names of the character, stated setting of the story, can ask questions pertinently to the story in order to obtain answers or questions. Participates actively and successfully in post-listening discussion and or completes an appropriate assignment 100 accuracy. Respond appropriately to dramatic or comedic moment with silence, laughter, and body language. So, kini nga criteria for listening dapat very observative very observative ka nga teacher kasi this is more on non-verbal. So after you grade the students on your observation, these are the questions that you can reflect on your discussion. So first are the learner's objects clearly defined? If not, what suggestion do you have to improve them? So let's assume that the discussion is already done. My answer is most of the learners got high rates. And to engage them completely in the activity, I suggest that we should group the students and will be tasked to tell the story for them to understand well. So in order for them to understand more, we can do an activity by pair or even group activity. Second is the instructional activity well aligned with the learning objectives. Yes, all the objectives are met clearly in identifying the possible ending of the story. The students also determine that the theme of the story is able to describe the moral lesson of the story. And also in teaching, dapat ang imong gina-discuss pod kay na-met pod niya mga objectives. Third is, does the activity encourage active students' engagement? Yes, the learners are engaged actively because the teacher performs some questions that most of the learners answered correctly. The teacher also gave a criteria in giving an authentic assessment. So as what I said, pwede ni siya sa individual, pair or a group activity. Since ang atong objectives is to encourage the student to participate. Fourth is, if the student completes the activity, can the teacher determine whether or not the student has met the stated learning objectives? Yes, the more activity the learners will engage, the more possibility they will understand and also they will master their learning skills. So if ever ang student gusto pa makabalo, you must prepare an active for them to actively engage in your discussion. So that's all for the lesson 5, language teaching strategies for mother tongue. Thank you so much for listening and God bless.